We are joined today by Gary Jobson, an acclaimed sailor, author, commentator, award winner. The list goes on. And also, I can imagine you would call yourself a friend of Ted Turner throughout your life. So, that's why we're talking to you today. Can you tell us about your relationship with Ted Turner, Gary?
Well, Ted Turner impacted my life as he did so many others, and I was quite grateful to race with him in two America's Cup campaigns in Newport and many ocean races all around the world. And after we retired from sailing, we still stayed good friends. And at least once a year, I'd go to one of his ranches around the world and do fly fishing and hunting. And he was a great friend and mentor. And Ted certainly left a lasting impact on the world, and he is going to be missed for sure.
When did you first meet Ted, and what was that like?
I met Ted for the first time in Barrington, Rhode Island at a sailing regatta in September of 1972. And I ended up second in that regatta, and Ted ended up sixth. And at the prize giving at the Barrington Yacht Club, he came up and said, "Son, I don't know who you are, but we got to get together and sail together someday." And a few years later, I teamed up with Ted and we started racing all over the world. So that's how I started. And now I think about it, it's 54 years ago.
Wow, it's a long time. So tell us what it's like for people watching. I mean, we are the ocean state. A lot of people are sailors around here, but for people who might not be, talk about the relationship and I guess the trust and respect that you have to have with and about someone on a ship with you, on a sailboat with you, for an extended period of time, especially when you're racing.
Well, let me kick off by saying I think Newport, Rhode Island is probably the best place to race sailboats in the world. So let's start with that. And of course, Narragansett Bay is special as well.
Yeah.
But on a boat, on a 12-meter in the America's Cup, we had 11 crew, and everybody has their job. It's like a football team. You know, every player is important, and certainly on a sailboat, everybody is. But there's a special relationship between the helmsman, the person steering, which was Ted Turner, and the tactician who gives guidance of where you should go on the race course. How do you place the boat? How do you read the wind shifts? And you're the person with the eyes outside the boat. So while Ted's job is to make the boat go fast and concentrate on steering, it was my job to place the boat and try and get us into an advantageous position. Most of the time we did, but not always. There were mistakes out there, are there, just like there are in all sporting competitions. And Ted was great because if you made a mistake, he would say, "Do you know what happened?" And you would say, "Yes." Great. Because you never wanted to make a mistake a second time, but he was always tolerant of the first mistake, and then you tried never to do that again.
Would you say that kind of mentality was why he was successful in other areas of his life as well?
You know, I think his life was analogous in all venues, whether it was philanthropy or journalism in your part of the world, with television or making movies or the environment. He tried to do things at a very high level and wanted to do the best he can. He was extremely creative, and I think he was the kind of person that did things that nobody had ever done before. And that's what made him successful. A, having a vision, and B, to have the courage to actually pull it all off. And, you know, you read the obits, he bet the farm several times,
Mm.
you know, very risky. A lot of people wouldn't do that. But he was so sure that he was on the right thing that he made it work.
Is it just the type of person that he is, or how do you become someone like that where you have that, steadfastness and confidence, I guess, in yourself, knowing that you're going to be able to succeed when everyone else is saying, I don't know, and more hesitant about it?
Well, Ted Turner certainly had inner drive, and he was a very smart guy. You know, he went to Brown, just down the street from where you are right
Hmm.
now, and he took classics. And his father didn't like him taking classics, but you look back, it was probably a brilliant move because what he really wanted to do was understand leadership and how you bring people together. And that's what he spent his whole life doing, is getting good people that were good at their jobs and motivating them and coordinating it all. And he had the vision to do that, and it all worked out. You know, he became extremely wealthy, but more importantly, I think he changed the world. CNN certainly was groundbreaking when it was launched on June 1st in 1980, and what he did with the film industry. And his environmental work and the nuclear threat initiative, trying to reduce nuclear armaments in the world. I mean, it's all good things. He was a great man with great vision.
And it seems like even though he was so busy doing all of those different things that are just huge tasks to take on, you said you went to his ranch or different places where he lived, what, once a year or
Yep.
something? So did he have a good work life balance?
Yeah, he did. I mean, when you're at the ranch, you'd go horseback riding in the morning, you go fly fishing in the afternoon, and the dinner conversations were always interesting. And when we were there, one of the nights would always be around the America's Cup or the sport of sailing. And you look in the guest book and you'd say, "Well, who else slept in this bedroom?" And you'd, "Oh my gosh, it was Jimmy and Rosalind Carter were here, or Mikhail Gorbachev had slept in this bed, or David Letterman, or Tom Brokaw." I mean, Ted had a lot of great friends around the world, and I think he had a motto: "Work hard, play hard." And I think he lived that to the max on both sides.
So you read those names and you were like, whoa, and you're obviously so acclaimed in your own right, but did you ever feel like, wow, I'm in the presence of this guy who's so accomplished, or did it seem like he was just a friend and a down to earth guy?
He was a down to earth guy, even though he was larger than life to the public. But just a quick story. Ted and I were doing some training sessions in Marblehead, Mass, and we're on a hill overlooking the harbor. And at our feet, right on the waterfront, was Courageous and Independence, the two 12 meters. And we're looking there, and he said, "When you were 15 years old, did you ever think you'd be sailing in a boat like this?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, neither did I. Isn't it the greatest thing that ever happened?" So there was a little bit of a little boy wonder in Ted
Mm,
that made it so special.
that is really special. All right. Well, Gary, thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to add that maybe you've been thinking about after you heard of his passing?
Well, I got the word, ironically, I was in a plane in Atlanta and my switchboard blew up on my phone with all the pings coming in from all over. And my first reaction is I got quite teared up, which, surprised my seatmates on either side. I was in a middle seat. And then 2 minutes later, I just started thinking of all the great moments I'd had with Ted over the years, and I felt better about it. And like I said, he was larger than life. He impacted the world, and he's a guy that was missed. And for all of us that were around him, we're quite lucky.
What do you think his legacy will be? Like, if you could sum it all up as someone who knew him so well.
Well, he changed the world as far as television journalism, and he made a focus on, we got to protect the environment. And I think those would be lasting things. He owned over 2 million acres of land, probably 3 times the size of the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And every property he had, he made those properties better. People would protest initially and then go, "Oh, he's doing really good work here."
Hmm.
And I think all of that will live on long into the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gary. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.